You're good. Hi, so it looks like a good amount of us have joined so far. Let's go ahead and kick things off. My name is Jennifer and I work at Trustpilot. I'm super excited to bring you guys today's webinar titled Zero to Hero, How to Develop and Maintain a Successful Business Reputation Strategy. We're going to cover some great information today. Our panelists today are our very own Eric Ratner, Team Lead of Customer Success, and Charlie Recklade, Customer Success Manager at Trustpilot. We're going to try to keep this around 30 minutes, so if you have any questions, feel free to type them in, and if time allows, we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. If we don't answer your question, don't worry, we'll be sure to follow up via email. We definitely want to make sure that all questions are answered. Thanks so much, and I'll hand it off to Charlie to share today's agenda.
Hey, morning guys, or afternoon rather. This is Charlie here. Looking forward to chatting with all of you today about everything we're going to go through. So just a quick look at the agenda. We'll give you a quick introduction to Trustpilot. If you're not familiar with us, we're looking forward to giving you a little more information on that. But we'll spend most of the time focusing on, naturally, online reputation, including a general case for why it matters, really how you can understand your existing online reputation, and then kind of take you to two different categories depending on your own individual scenario, whether it is little to no reputation, kind of with a blank slate. If you may be working from negative reputation, don't worry. We'll tell you how you can make that better. And also capitalizing on if you already have a positive reputation, pat on the back for already being halfway there. We'll tell you you can kind of leverage that further. And we'll finish up with some basic Q&A.
So I'll get things started. This is Eric. I'll talk about Trustpilot a little bit. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with us, but for those who are not, we're an online community and business solution helping connect consumers and businesses via reviews. Some really interesting stats we have here about us as a company, but something I like to highlight is the fact that we have over 140,000 reviewed websites on Trustpilot. We actually have about 27 million online reviews that we've collected so far. And one of the stats that I think is most impressive is the fact that we have actually over 1 billion impressions of our Trustpilot widgets on consumers' sites every month. I think for me, just hearing the word billion is always a lot of fun. Getting into why does Trustpilot exist? So as I said, we're here for consumers as a review community where people every day come to Trustpilot and leave reviews about businesses and about their experiences that they've had with an individual company. At the same time, we work with businesses to help collect reviews, to help show those reviews on site and engage with their customers so that we can help accelerate growth within that business. I'm going to let Charlie get started here today and just run through some stats that we found to be pretty interesting on why creating an online reputation is really important.
Yep, absolutely. So we got a few stats here on the next couple slides. Obviously, won't go through all of them, but I think one of the ones here that really stands out to me is the one about 85% of customers use the internet to research and actually make a purchase or before they make a purchase. And of those 85%, about 70% of them are reading testimonials and reviews. So this is interesting. I think pretty much it's safe to say everyone on this call is probably a consumer on their own, uses Amazon, what have you. Obviously, those reviews are quite impactful, and I think we see the same thing here on a day-to-day basis. And we'll get into this a little bit further, but we do just want to highlight here how impactful that what other people are saying. It really does make a big difference when it comes to other consumers' decisions about what they want to do. So, a bunch more stats here. Again, won't go through them all, but a couple here that really stand out to me is the one that talks about really the positive reviews, and this obviously is all about your reputation. So it just goes a long way to show that when, roughly over 70% of people actually see someone else saying something positive, they're that much more inclined to take action and potentially follow through with the transaction. So that's great. Obviously, it just kind of goes to show that the work you put in for your reputation does pay dividends. And as we go through this, you'll start to see that a little bit more here as well. I'm going to hand it over to Eric again, and he will go through a little bit more now how you can understand the current status of your reputation as we move further into the different scenarios for each.
Yeah, thanks. So now that we know, having an online reputation is important, people are looking online about your brand, regardless whether you guys know it or not. The first thing that we want to do is understand where your brand is mentioned on the web. Look at Google, look at social media to find where people are going, and even ask people directly as you speak with them how they find out about you as a business. Start to figure out, during the conversion funnel, and you can even go through this on your own, how are people coming to your website and what have they stumbled upon in that process. And lastly, what sources are out there? Once we've done our research, once we've looked online and figured out that there's, different social profiles out there, there's different mentions of your brand. Are they good? Are they bad? Take kind of a lay of the land and start to understand what's on the internet and start listening to what people are saying. After we've really figured out what's out there, let's dig into this a little bit further too. So how do they actually get to your website? There are tools out there like Google Analytics where you can see referring domains that are driving traffic to your website. If you see that a ton of traffic is coming from Facebook and you haven't taken control of that profile, we obviously suggest that you start to invest there and start to take control of your reputation on that channel. So really determine where's traffic coming from and figure out the best way to optimize that channel. Next is really what are people saying. So in that, again, as I said, in that buying journey, start to look at the different channels and start to understand through through some of these tools that we have listed here about some of the feedback that people are giving you. And then lastly, optimize these sources. So we've now figured out that you're the lay of the land. We understand that there's a lot of different places out there where your brand is mentioned. I said Facebook earlier, but obviously there's Twitter, there's Quora, YouTube, all these different channels where people can be talking about you. Start to optimize them. Start to make sure that they rank well in organic search for your branded terms. And then lastly, make sure that they're actually, you're up to speed with your brand guidelines. Make sure your logo is the correct logo on all of the different sites that are there. Make sure that your brand is represented in the correct way on all of these channels. Just making sure that your brand image is consistent throughout the internet is a really important thing that you should start doing, on all the channels. I'm going to pass it on here a little bit for Charlie to talk about what you can do if there's really little or no online reputation. He'll talk through some of the opportunity that you have as a business.
Cool. Thanks, Eric. So guys, just piggybacking off that last slide that Eric just went through, as I mentioned earlier, if you're pretty much starting with a blank slate, that's fine. The first thing you want to really do is almost put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. Figure out what is ranking when someone searches for your brand, right? It's easy to go into Google and do a search for yourself, see what pops up, what profiles are showing up, what are people saying. As Eric said, take ownership of these, right? Almost every service gives you the ability to actually claim the profile if it is in fact your brand. Make sure, if possible, that these channels have the ability to reply to customers. If they do, don't stop yourself from either, saying quick thanks for leaving us a great review, or I would argue more importantly, if someone writes something negative, it's not the end of the world. In fact, it's going to take you a long way as you go to improve. So the first thing you want to do in that case is just say, thanks so much for the feedback. We're going to look into this. If you can, try to dive further into it with the customer. The real goal here is to let that little to no reputation you have start to grow into something bigger. I think the best way to do that is to show customers that you care, that you're willing to listen, and claiming all the profiles, like Eric mentioned, is really the best place to start there. Moving on, once you've obviously claimed your profiles, the next step is to make sure you can start saturating these with reviews. What's the best way to do that is hands down being proactive and asking people to leave you reviews. Again, pretty much I'd imagine we're all consumers here. It's a pretty safe bet just based on human nature that if you're going out of your way to leave a review, more often than not, it tends to unfortunately be a more negative experience just because, general frustration seems to be more motivating than, someone just having a good experience. That was kind of what you hopefully come to expect as a consumer nowadays. Every consumer, for the most part, is the same way. If you just wait for them to leave you a review, unfortunately, they will tend to usually split around 50-50 at best, sometimes even more so towards the negative side. The good news there is, though, there's a lot of really good profiles and solutions out there to let you actually proactively invite customers to leave you a review. And as you can see here, once someone is actually asked to leave a review and reflect on that otherwise, pretty what they would hope to be a standard experience, they're actually going to go out of their way to write something back nice, because again, you went out of your way to help them. Ideally, they'll come back, and as you can see, there's a pretty significant gap here. About 83% of those, when you actually ask for a review, tend to be positive. And again, it's not to say you won't get negatives, but the negative ones you get will help you improve as you actually go through and analyze what these people are saying. And the final step here, or not the final step, there's always more you can do, to be honest, but the last thing we want to highlight is really just being able to create and market your own content. Again, you have the ability here with no kind of real existing reputation to drive that and build that on your own. Whether it's creating different pages on site, blog posts, this is really all stuff, as Eric said, you want to be able to be ranking for the things that your customer is going to be searching for, right? So if someone searches for your brand and specific content you put up, like blog posts, like your commitment to customers or whatever it might be. That's going to go a long way aside from just what these other social profiles and third parties are already saying about you. And moving down here, we'll actually move to if you have a negative reputation. Eric will go through why it is not the end of the world.
Yeah, and as Charlie said, it is not the end of the world. We get a lot of questions from partners who have a negative online reputation, and a lot of their questions are, should we respond to reviews? Will responding to reviews improve your reputation? And can I actually save unhappy customers? Is it really even worth it to be part of the conversation? And the answer to all of these is obviously yes. We encourage all of our partners to engage in the reviews and actually have a say and have a voice in the conversation, which we think is probably one of the most important things you can do, not only on Trustpilot, but on all review platforms, as well as within the social world as well. Saving unhappy customers, we see it happen all the time. And at the end of the day, too, people are coming to these social platforms, they're coming to Trustpilot, and they're reading reviews. If prospects can see that you as a business have a voice in the actual conversation and that you're active and responding to reviews, they're much more likely to view your business as a positive place and a good place to be shopping. And at the tail end of this too, always ask for more feedback. Charlie just went through a stat there that mentioned 83% of reviews are positive when you actually start asking for them. That's another place to really get started as well, is make sure you're always asking people for that feedback on all the different channels that are out there. Getting in a little bit further of responding to reviews and what that content looks like. This is actually a great example from a partner of ours who has thousands and thousands of reviews on Trustpilot, and it just so happens there's a small handful that are negative. But I think they do a great job here, and we've outlined exactly what they've done. But first, always apologize, always take credit for, it was a misunderstanding, it was our fault. Next, address the customer's concerns directly. There's obviously, not just a blanket statement here of, we apologize, we'll get back to you. It's very direct, exactly what happened in this customer experience. And lastly, and give some follow-up too. Make sure that you're closing the loop on the conversation, and even giving them another opportunity to reach out, which I love that this partner has done. We have customers who respond to reviews in all sorts of ways, and we see that this model works really well for businesses to help actually turn the situation around. And if we actually take a look at the next slide here, this is a perfect example on Trustpilot of a review that was updated from that same business. So there was obviously a negative experience that somebody had, and they expressed their concerns on Trustpilot. And as you can see via the title here, mostly good, one bad apple, which was the original title, and they updated that to all is good now. You can see the updated dates in the upper right-hand corner. But this just is a perfect example of a partner who reached out to a customer, replied to their review, understood their concerns, really followed up, had a public reply here on Trustpilot, but followed up privately as well, which is another great way to ensure that you're addressing your client's concerns. But by following up privately and correcting their concerns, this customer, Teresa, actually came back to Trustpilot and updated their review, which, there's nothing better than seeing this. You've created, a customer with a really long lifetime value by making sure that you've updated and helped resolve their issue. And lastly, we're talking about replying to reviews, and obviously what you want to do is make sure that you're replying to reviews in the right channels. Evaluate the property that has negative reviews. A lot of times, some of there's sites out there that are a little shady. They don't have the best community. So making sure that you're actually responding to people on the right channels is obviously important. And they're not any type of scams or rip-off type websites, because those obviously do exist. And as we dig in here a little bit further, I'll let Charlie dive into now capitalizing on a positive online reputation, which hopefully most of us already have.
Yep, absolutely. So guys, the final end of the spectrum, obviously, if people do already go out of their way to let you know that they love you and other people can see it, that's great. What we want to do here is really maximize that and capitalize on that, as Eric said. The first thing is, don't become complacent, right? Just because people are really happy now, it doesn't necessarily mean that things are always going to be that way. So make sure that you are always paying attention to what they're saying. Most importantly, as I continue to say, you will continue to get negative feedback. Nobody's perfect. Just make sure you're listening to that. Again, let the customer know that you've heard it, that you are ideally going out of your way to change it. Maybe it was a one-off situation, whatever it might have been. We find that if you kind of nip that in the bud and don't let it linger, it will really help you from a reputation side or from a business side if we're able to really get on top of that and just keep things as positive as you can. And also on that note, there's a lot of platforms out there, as we've probably mentioned several times by now. You can't answer all of them, as nice as that would be. There's only so much bandwidth at everyone's plate. So make sure you focus on the ones that are the most highly trafficked, so that everything that you're responding really gets the most, really gets the highest reach with the biggest audience possible. So really get the most out of those reviews on your own site. So once, and really that whole reputation in general, once you start collecting, let's say, good reviews, or you start really getting people saying nice things about you, show them off. You know, be proud of it. There's really no one that's going to say, well, you're bragging too much. Most customers, as we said, about 85% of them are looking for testimonials and reviews. If you give them a place to find it, you're making their lives significantly easier, particularly if you do it on site. It kind of potentially saves someone the trouble of having to go look elsewhere. Obviously, if you have a bunch of good reviews, that's going to go a long way, and again, help them get them across the finish line and through that funnel. So I think also press releases as well. Let's say you hit a certain milestone, whether it's 1,000 reviews or whatever it might be. Again, show it off. People are always going to be happy to see that a company they're either doing business with or thinking about doing business with is doing a very good job. So a few examples for you guys on how you can, further make the most out of this positive reputation is really start to look at these great things that people are saying and see how you can use it to impact your own business. One example here from Dashlane, who is a password management service that works with Trustpilot. Essentially what they found is the customers are really happy. What they want to do in their marketing initiatives is really mirror the language the customers are using to better speak their language, right? What are customers responding to? So you can see here by looking at some of the reviews they received on Trustpilot, they go through, they're able to figure out what keywords are being mentioned the most, and when they then send out their marketing content, whether it's on-site or by any other channel, they're actually going out of their way, as you can see below, to mirror those words that people are saying, because these seem to be the things that people are responding very well to. And also, as I said, continue to respond to all the reviews, including the positive. Again, I realize there's only so much time on everyone's plate, and to be honest, the negatives do always have to take a little bit more priority, but nonetheless, it's the same. People are putting the same amount of effort to write the positive review as the ones that write a negative review. So if you can, even real quick, like you can see Mancrates here did, just write something nice. Let them know that you heard them. In this case, it was a great review. There was a slight issue. Obviously, Mancrates went out of their way to get it resolved instantly. They do a very good job of that consistently. And as you can see, it just shows. You're reading. It's like, okay, they clearly have paid attention, and this is not some canned response. They really are trying to make sure this customer is 100% satisfied, opposed to 95%. And another really good example for you guys here in more of the financial space is Homebridge. Homebridge is also a partner of ours, and they are big in the mortgage space. And if anyone's ever taken out a mortgage, they know that there's 1,000,001 lenders out there. So just as they're trying to vet you as a company, I'd argue you're trying to vet them even more, because you do have so many options. So Homebridge has done a really good job of not only collecting good reviews, but then leveraging them and showing them off, as we've said, in a lot of different locations. They've set up their own reviews page, so it's homebridge.com/homebridgereviews. You can see that's ranking very well, and actually the first position for Google. And with the Trustpilot reviews they've put on site, they've been able to achieve those gold stars you see there, those rich snippet stars, just really kind of drive that traffic up higher. I think the latest increase, is about 35%, which is awesome. That's 35% more people that are looking for their reviews and actually going to their site. And once they're in the Homebridge ecosystem, it's much easier for them to navigate and actually look through the mortgage process once they figured out, okay, Homebridge is a company that is reputable, that has a good reputation, that I could see myself doing business with. So really all this goes to show there's 1,000,001 examples of this, but if you're already collecting good reviews or good reputation and feedback in general, go out of your way to show it off, because people do want to see it.
And just to add to this too, at the end of the day, a consumer, at the bottom of the funnel is going to be looking for your brand plus reviews in Google. This is probably the most important place for you to have a positive online reputation. And I think Homebridge does an incredible example here of driving traffic directly to their site, as they know that people are trying to go to Homebridge and look for reviews. You see in the upper right-hand corner there, they have a site search as well. I'm sure there are tons of people who are looking on their website for reviews. So if you have that as well on your site, take a look at that site search as well. Start to figure out if people are looking for reviews on your site and you don't have that content for them, build it out. Use, obviously, a trust box if you're partnered with Trustpilot, and build out that testimonials page. But if not, we have partners who B&H Photo does a tremendous job where they feature probably 15 different partners on their testimonials page, which ranks tremendously well in organic search, and they drive a lot of traffic to that page just for people who are looking to read more reviews about them. So this is probably one of the best examples that we can kind of provide on exactly how to really take advantage of your online reputation. So we're going to get in to some questions here.
So I see we have a question here from Megan, trying to figure out, I've collected a few good reviews, but also some negatives. She's trying to understand, it looks like, what's appropriate to show off on site, and, if the customer would want to see both the positive and negatives. I think that's a really good question. Eric, do you want to chime in, or do you want me to take it?
I mean, as far as showing reviews on site, I'll take a quick stab at it, and then you could see if I missed anything here. But, it depends on the business. It's pretty funny, when we started in the U.S. maybe 4.5 years ago or so, a lot of businesses, at least over in Europe, only wanted to show all reviews and be as transparent as possible. I don't know if that's exactly the U.S. way of doing things all the time. So we've created trust boxes that actually allow partners to show 1 through 5-star reviews, or only select their 5-star reviews. It's entirely up to the business, and even in fact, there are abilities within Trustpilot at least to highlight specific reviews that speak really well to the value proposition that a partner's offering. That's obviously another option. Anything I missed there, Charlie?
I think that was really good. I think one thing a partner of ours is doing well is they've actually set up a complaint section of their website. And the logic here is, one, you can of course go there to file a complaint, but also you can see, not a ton, but there are some customer complaints. Really, the logic here is if we show the customers everything that, kind of the worst case scenario and how the company fixed it, it really lets them see, okay, this is the absolute worst thing that can happen, and they still made it okay. And that actually has gone a long way in helping them increase their conversions, because they're kind of very upfront and open right off the bat.
So we actually just got another question here. Should you reward or offer your customers a gift card for writing a positive review? Charlie, do you want to chime in for that?
I think that's a really good question. I would say to almost all that question, it's effective. However, there's one piece that we personally and professionally recommend that you change. When it comes to offering an incentive, what you find you don't want to do is you don't want to say, here's X for writing us a positive review. You more want to word it, here's X for writing us a review in general. When you incentivize a positive review, you're not really being true to yourself, because if you're just trying to give away a gift card for a positive review and that's all you get, while it may look good, it doesn't really let you understand the other side of the coin where people may have some issues. So absolutely, we have a lot of partners of ours that will incentivize to write a review. They just don't write a positive review, write any review. And obviously, all reviews are welcome, as they should be, positive or negative. So from the incentive side, I absolutely do think it's valuable to do.
And on that incentive piece as well, one of my favorite stories is a partner of ours, Storage Mart, that for every review, they donate $10 to a charity. So regardless if the review is good, regardless of them bad, they're making a donation. So they're helping out a good cause, and they're also collecting some really valuable feedback. So that's one other way to approach it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's an excellent incentive. Everybody's kind of winning in that situation. Another question here is, do you have any tools to help me collect reviews? I find it difficult for customers to actually follow through with a review, even if they say they will. Yeah, we absolutely do, and that's kind of something that we come up here all the time, is, how do you get someone to actually help leave you a review? Eric, do you want to dive a little bit further into that?
I mean, we have tons of ways for partners to collect reviews depending on the tier that you're on. One of them is obviously just via email. At the end of the day, we're obviously dealing with consumers who, you send them an email and maybe they don't leave that review, but we see pretty high response rates on our email invitations, and we actually even have now a feature of a reminder email invitation where a customer can get another, a last reminder, if you will, to leave that review and collect that feedback. That's probably the best way to go about it. If you're trying to disperse kind of your reviews, collect them on Trustpilot, collect them on tons of different other places, then one of the best ways to do it is also after somebody's having that experience in store or online, to say, hey, we're gonna send over an invitation here. Just please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Anything I missed there, Charlie?
No, I think you covered that really well. And actually, I do want to jump into another question we just got. is trying to figure out if we have any suggestions when it comes to kind of handling negative reviews, and if they should be removed, if they should just be left in place. Some customers will aggressively react when they're alerted their feedback's been removed. So that's a really good question. We come across that quite a bit here. Obviously, as I said, nobody's perfect. There are going to be negative reviews. Depending on the content of the review, and particularly if you're working with Trustpilot, if it really truly breaches our guidelines or not, can help you determine if it's worth removing. To give you guys a little bit of background, we have a compliance department here that makes sure that reviews are within our guidelines. For example, someone that is offering defamatory statements or directly saying that they shouldn't work with you, they should work with a competitor of yours. A couple things like that, using foul language. Those are all things that just from a professional standpoint, our compliance team personally doesn't let stand. When it comes to reviews in general, obviously, you are going to know your customers the best. There will be some negative reviews that maybe are no good to see, but at the end of the day, it may do more harm than good, like this person was implying, to remove them. So really what you want to focus on no matter what is how you respond. Even if the review is taken down, before it's taken down, there will be a response from you as to why you've requested it to be moderated by our team, or even just a reply on a negative review that is not being taken down. No negative review, no one review is going to put you out of business, right? In fact, a lot of customers, we didn't have the stat in here, but I think it's like 70-something% of customers will actually go out of their way to look at negative reviews before even looking at the positive reviews. The thinking there is, as I mentioned with that company who does the complaint section of their site, they really want to see what's the worst case scenario, and how does the company handle it. Once they see the negatives and it's like, okay, the company is actively responding to customers, they're acknowledging that they may have made a mistake and they're trying to rectify it, that goes a very long way, and then it opens the door for them to look at the positive reviews and really see what they expect to be happening, because I genuinely believe that most people expect a good experience. They just kind of want to brace for the worst, and they look at some of the negatives first.
And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier as well, of just responding to some of the negative reviews. There are going to be unhappy people out there, and that's okay. But having a voice in that conversation, and at least fortunately on Trustpilot, having kind of the last voice in that conversation is always a great way to make sure that you're at least representing the brand when there is that negative experience.
Yeah. So that looks like that's the last question we have. So I think that should pretty much wrap it up here, guys. Eric, is there anything you want to chime in with before we go?
No. Hope everybody enjoys March Madness and their brackets are still intact.
Yep.
But that's really all I have to add.
Well, thank you, Eric and Charlie. That was super informative. We're actually going to be sending out a recording and a slide share after this. If you want to review it again or send it to your friends, feel free. Otherwise, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and thanks for coming to our webinar.